Everyone, hello and welcome to our online Brekkie event. It's really exciting to be with you. My name's Karen Williams and I'm hoping that you can hear me and let me know that you're here. So if you can, pop something in the chat box just to let me know that we're connected and that I'm coming loud and clear through to you in your bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, lounge room, or if you're out on your walk. So I know that there's people here joining us today who were here last time. So this is our second Brekkie event. So love to welcome those people who have returned and are investing in themselves this morning. So welcome. I'd also really love to welcome the people who are here for the first time. So thank you for investing in yourself, for putting your earpods in or out on your walk, wherever you are. Welcome, and I look forward to spending the next hour with you. So just want to check in that you can hear me. Yes, everyone can hear me, so fantastic, and welcome. So as people are joining, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Karen Williams. I'm a coach and a trainer, and I've been a transformational coach for just on 20 years this year. And it seems like a very long time. Imagine when you look back on your career, how much you've done over the last 20 years, whatever that looks like for you. I hope you're proud of that. There's been some ups and downs for me, as I imagine there has been for you, especially at this time. And we'll talk about that as well. So it's my privilege now to work with leaders and teams in business, helping them connect, communicate, and collaborate with each other, so as a peer group, but also with their direct reports, especially in difficult times and especially when emotions are high. So one of the things that I'm most proud of in my career is the work that I've done in restorative practices methodology, which is helping people come together and have difficult conversations. Because my belief is that when we can cut through the emotion and cut through the challenge and take responsibility for how we're showing up, that anything is possible. So that's what we'll be talking about today. One of the things is self-responsibility. So I'm just checking in to make sure that everyone's, yes, everyone can hear me. So morning, hello everyone for saying that. And so you may be very familiar with Zoom or any of the online platforms now where we can connect. So I've been using Zoom for a long time, for a number of years. But these are our kind of first webinars in this way. So if you see me looking at the chat box and reading your questions or comments, that's what I'm doing. I'll ask your questions a little bit later after I've shared some things with you, because I'd love to know what you'd like to go deeper on and what's making the impact for you and what's being helpful for you. So welcome. So those who are here for the first time, welcome, and those who are joining me again, welcome. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. Difficult times, challenging times, the conversations I've had with leaders and teams over the last few weeks tells me that people are in all different places. This week even I've had people share with me how challenged they are by the conversations they need to have with their teams, the conversations they need to have with their children and at home. And also some people are feeling like they're enjoying the quietness, there's less cars on the streets, there's less tension in the air, people are enjoying the clearer air. And so there's those two ends of the spectrum, and then there's everything in between. So I want you to know wherever you're at today, what's true for you now today is absolutely perfect. I'm calling this the Brekkie community. I don't know about you, but breakfast is my favourite meal of the day. And so the Brekkie community feels really fun to me, but it feels like a beautiful space to come together. And it's your chance to reflect today, to refresh mentally and also physically, because when we refresh mentally and emotionally, feels like we refresh physically as well. And then to reset for the next couple of weeks, because I'm running these sessions fortnightly at the moment, as long as they're providing value for you. And so if you can reset today and go, okay, what did I promise myself the last couple of weeks? What did I do? What didn't I do? And now what do I want to re-promise and promise myself for the next couple of weeks? And so each breakfast event or online event will have a different topic. And I'd love to know, and your feedback will be sending out a request for some brief feedback. Is there anything in particular that you want to go deep on? What's your greatest challenge or problem right now in this situation that you maybe would like some new information on, or would like to just have an hour to reflect on and to be supported through this format. So welcome everyone. Thank you everyone for saying hello, 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 hello. Wonderful to welcome you, and thank you for being here and investing in yourself today. So I want to let you know that what this is a space for you to really see what's true for you and to listen to what I'm sharing with you, obviously, but also to take in what works for you. So trying it on like a jumper. Does this fit for me? Does this feel like I could have a go at this? Does this resonate for me? Yes, it does. I'll take these bits. No, it doesn't. I'll leave those bits behind. At the same time, I encourage you to think from a perspective of, rather than what do I agree with and have I heard all this before, because it's likely that you have, because information is one thing. It's what we do with the information that makes all the difference to our lives, whether that's mind, whether that's body, whether that's heart, spirit and soul. So there's a lot of information coming at you right now. So I thank you for trusting me, maybe hearing a little bit more information or new information, hopefully. But there will be things that you've heard before. My question to you is, or invite you to ask yourself this question: what am I doing with that information? Am I actually implementing it? Because I know you would be great support for your friends. If a friend of yours rings up and says, hey, I've got this challenge, I don't know what to do, I'm really drowning here in this situation, you would be an amazing mentor, support to them. You'd probably have some amazing advice. But when we reflect on our own lives, we're not always implementing it for ourselves, are we? So I ask you to reflect on, am I doing this? Even if I know it, if not, and I feel like I'd like to, then how can I put this into place? So that's my invitation to you in how you listen to today's session. So this isn't about motivating you or trying to make everything okay when it's not, or trying to pretend everything's fine. It's also not trying to tell you to feel bad if you feel great. Someone shared with me recently, is it okay to feel hopeful and excited about the future? Absolutely. If that's how you're feeling, then fantastic. My invitation to you on that would be just to give it away. Not to try and make other people feel that way, but just to give it away in your energy and just allow people to be where they're at and just be the example for thriving in a situation when we feel like we just have to survive. So I've got some notes here, as I said. I just want to share with you the 3 intentions. So hopefully you've got your journal and your pen, or if you haven't, grab them now, or your iPad or whatever it is that you take notes on, because I'd like you to take as many notes as you can and then reflect later, maybe over the weekend, to see what you'd like to implement. Jim Quick, who's a mentor and an entrepreneur around our brain power, says that we lose 80% of the information if we don't write it down after a session like this. So I really encourage you to write it down so you can reflect later. So there's 3 intentions that I have for today. So you might like to write this down. Hello, good morning, welcome. So my intentions are that you learn something new. Yeah. So you learn something new today, even if it's just one nugget, one piece of gold for you. The second is space. Space just to be. How often do you take that space for yourself? How often do you take a moment just to breathe? I know some of you who've been working with me and maybe working with me for a little while, that you might have that practice or that routine in place. And those who are new to this work or new to emotional intelligence, self-reflection, then maybe it's something to experience today as just some space to be yourself, however you are. You don't have to have anything done or anything in a certain way. It's just space for you today. And then the third one is to feel refreshed. That you've had an injection, a self-injection of self-inspiration that you can take into this coming week, the next coming fortnight. So those are my 3 intentions for you. So write them down, make sure that you come back to them at the end of the session just to check in and see if that's been true for you. So learn something new, space to just be, and refresh. All right. So there'll be some things that I put on the board for you today that you can jot down in your journals that will help you navigate this area of rituals and routines and self-responsibility. So thank you. I've got messages coming through. Thank you. So great to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And this time is for you. This hour is for you to reflect on who you want to be and who you want to be for others. So as I said, I work with leaders and teams in business, and this is sometimes some of the work that we do, because my leadership excellence framework, it starts with leading self. And leading self is being aware of our triggers, what works for us, what doesn't, asking for our needs to be met, being okay if they're not met by other people, not being attached. So there's a lot of work to do when we're talking about self-responsibility and self-reflection. But if we're not doing that work, it's likely that we're going to find it difficult to lead, connect, communicate and collaborate with others, especially in difficult times like this, whether that's our family or our peer group at work, our community, or whether that's our direct reports. All right, so we're good so far? Okay, so I wanted to share with you someone I was coaching last year, an amazing woman who very successful, very experienced in what her career and her profession, what she was doing, but found that she was reacting a lot, found that she was becoming emotional. And I've had a number of women share with me, even before this situation hit us in the last 5 weeks, even before then, but especially now, finding themselves very emotional, and the emotions are just coming at different times when they don't expect them, and also in ways that they maybe haven't felt before. And so this world of emotions is such an important area. I was listening to, you might know Brené Brown's recent podcast with Mark Brackett, who was just released in the last couple of days. And he's the director for the Centre of Emotional Intelligence. So I love their deep work in the area of emotions, and it's one of the areas that I work on because it's complex, and mostly leaders don't know, aren't equipped in how to deal with emotions in others. And it's mainly because we haven't learned to deal with it within ourselves. And in times like these, there's a flea in here, at times like these, the emotions are going to almost feel sometimes out of control or uncontrollable. And it's important to know that whatever emotions you're feeling are valid, and it's important to give space for them. And I'll share that with you, a little bit more about that with you in a moment. But this leader who was finding that she was getting emotional and reactive, and she was sort of taking it out on her team, although not meaning to, because she had very good intentions. She was also suffering with her relationships at home, because people at home weren't enjoying how she was being reactive and being more emotional at times, and didn't know how to support her through that. So through the coaching, through her understanding of herself, through self-responsibility, putting in some routines and rituals in place, she was able to establish this daily practice. It took some time and took some effort, and still it's a daily practice. And you might know that yourself if you've been doing this work for a little while. It doesn't go away. There's always a new layer to peel away. So after doing personal development work for 20 years, I know for myself it's still a daily practice, and sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes not so good. And this situation in the last 5 weeks has certainly challenged me, and I'll share that a little bit about that later. So she was putting in some rituals and routines that really felt aligned for her to her values and to the person that she wanted to be. Not the person that she'd been before, but the person that she wanted to be now and going into the future, the vision that she had for herself. So she put those routines and rituals in place that married and matched that person. And so in practice and with focus and discipline, she was able to do that. And through that growth period, now, and still practicing it daily, she is now able to be centered and grounded and open in situations that she might have otherwise been triggered and closed off and protective and emotional. So she's able to, she's got a bigger capacity now to hold space for her own emotions within her, for her own feelings, and to acknowledge them, to not make them wrong or to try and dismiss them or avoid them, numb them, or ignore them like often we do, but be able to kind of let them flow through. Yeah. And so you might have heard meditation yogis speak about how we just let thoughts flow through our mind when we're meditating. Kind of like that, just honouring our feelings and feeling them. And as we do that, because emotion needs motion, the emotions are released, and then we can, new thinking is inspired. So I love her story about the rituals and routines that she put in place, and I'll share with you what some of them are, as to how much of a difference that made in her life. So I know that there's some questions coming through. There's a hand raised. Someone's raised their hand. So let me see. Oh no, the hand has gone down. I'd love, if you've got a question, please put it in the Q&A box, because that makes it easier for me to be able to stay connected with you and while answering a question. So if you've raised your hand and put it down, please put your question in the box, in the chat box. That would be really helpful so I can see what your question is. All right, so good to go. Okay, so one important distinction I want to make with you is conversation versus content. So this Brekkie community, and you might like to take this distinction into your work and with your group at home as well, is whether that's family or friends or extended family, whoever you're isolating with, is this distinction of content versus conversation. We give updates and information a lot, but are we having a conversation? Are we allowing people to just be in that space, to be however they're feeling, to feel safe, to be able to say, you know what, I'm not okay today. And I think in my life about the people that I feel safe to do that with, to be really open and vulnerable with. And there's certain people that I feel that, yes, I feel like I won't be judged. I feel like I'm okay to be however I am, that I don't have it all handled, because no one does. No one in this situation has it all handled. So I know Brené Brown, I love her work around this, where she talks about, you know, vulnerability is not oversharing. So to be vulnerable as a leader or as a leader of our family, it's not about just sharing everything for the sake of it. It's choosing who we share what with, that feels safe and trusted for us, that we feel that we're going to be not judged, and that we're going to be able to work through what we need to work through to be the person that we want to be. So that's a really important distinction. Okay, so I want to draw something on the board for you. Do we have a question? No question yet. Cool. So I want you to draw this in your journal. So I want you to consider that this is everything there is to know in the world, right? So everything there is to know in the universe, I'm depicting it with this circle. And I know that's a gross underestimation, but just for the moment. So I want you to draw one wedge. And so if this is everything there is to know at all, ever in the universe, this is that is KK, what we know that we know. And this is something I learned 20 years ago when I first started my personal development journey. So this is what we know that we know. And human beings, we operate through our belief systems, our values, our conditioning, what we've grown up in our environment. So we are all a product of what we've learned and experienced and the decisions we've made about how to be in the world over our period of time on this planet, right? So I call it blinkers, like blinkers on a racehorse. We've got these blinkers on and we think we've got these blinkers on, but actually we've got these blinkers on. So we see the world how we are as opposed to seeing the world how it is, yes? So this is what we operate from, what we know that we know. So, for example, what's an example of what you know that you know? Have a think about that. Example of what I know that I know is I know now how to do a webinar on Zoom. I knew how to do meetings, now I know how to do a webinar. I know that I know how to do my job, how to be a coach, because I've practiced it, I've failed, I've succeeded, I'm still learning every day, yeah? I know that I know how to make my delicious breakfast in the morning. As I said, my breakfast is my favourite meal of the day. So there's lots of things that you know, yeah? Your job, how to be mum, how to be a parent, how all that stuff, how to drive a car, all that, right? Easy. This next wedge is what we know that we don't know. Okay, so what we know, so that's KDK, what we know that we don't know. So what you know that you don't know, what's an example of that? For me, it's I know that I don't know how to drive a tractor. Never driven a tractor before, I wouldn't really know how to use the gears. Imagine it's something like a car, but I have no idea. Now, if I wanted to learn how to drive a tractor, I could probably know where to go. I could Google it, I could go for a drive in the country when I'm allowed to, and figure that out, right? I know that I don't know how to do it, but if I wanted to learn, I could go find out. So this is where our blinkers stop. This is how we live our lives, yes? And so this is when we get information, this is what happens. New information comes in all the time, whether you're getting it from the media, so the news or social media or your friends, wherever you get your information from, books, podcasts, that's information coming in. Fantastic, information is really helpful, but it's not the whole story. Have a think about what you know about how to be well, how to be healthy, how to have the emotional framework that you want to have, how to have the physical framework that you want to have, what you know about being productive, you know about how to set routines, you know from 5 a.m. club, you've probably heard of that before, you've probably heard between 6 and 7, it's probably good to journal, all of those things, right? So you know a lot of information, yes? So today I'm going to be giving you some of that, but mostly this is where I work. This is the space of transformation. This is the space of what you don't know that you don't know. Yeah? What you don't know that you don't know. This is the light bulb. You know those times where you have a light bulb moment and you go, I never saw it like that before. And then everything shifts. It's like a paradigm shift. The world changes. on its axis, kind of what happened in the last 5 weeks, yeah? It's like, whoa, yes. So what we don't know, you're figuring out lots of things that you don't know that you don't. I didn't know how to work remotely while my kids are at home as well as my partner. Right, that's something that you didn't know before. And now it's gone into, I know that I don't know how to do that. And now I'm trying to learn how to do that. Yes. So a great example right now that you're living. And for those of us like me who live alone, learning how to be in isolation and not feel lonely potentially. So there's lots of different things that we're finding out that we didn't know before. But there's things that are still in your don't know that you don't know area. Someone's got some questions. I'll come back to that in a sec. There's some still things here and you don't know that you don't know, which are why you're not implementing rituals and routines that you've probably been promising yourself for a while. Yeah? So maybe a 5 a.m. wake up or a 6 a.m. wake up, going for a run, going for a walk. The things that you've probably been promising yourself for a long time that you might have tried and started, but have worn off and they're in the distant past now, and you keep promising yourself that you'll do it. Maybe it's eating in a certain way. Maybe it's showing up in your relationship in a certain way. Maybe it's not reacting to the kids that in a way that you've been reacting. You just keep telling yourself, I'm not going to do that again. And it's in here, don't know that I don't know. Why am I doing that? So this is the space that we're working, okay? And this is some of hopefully what you'll get today. My intention is that you'll always have a light bulb moment or some sense of seeing the world differently, so that when you leave this call, you do feel refreshed and you do have some things to help you reset, not only information, but also understanding about yourself, self-awareness. Remember, leading self, the foundation of leadership excellence. All right, so let me just check in on a couple of questions. There's so much I don't know. I know. I know. Yes. Okay. So some people are saying, I didn't know how much I would love isolation. So as I said, there's people on the spectrum everywhere. Some people are loving it. Some people are in a lot of pain. So absolutely. Other questions? Let me see if there's any other questions. No. All good. Okay. So I think that there's still a hand raised, but okay. Yeah, wait a minute. So there's some questions going in the Q&A box. See, I said I'm learning this, right? Yes, we'll be hearing about those rituals in a second. So thank you. All right. So good. So I'm going to rub this off. Everyone got this? I'm going to rub this off. Okay, cool. So if I asked you what were some rituals and routines that you know that you'd like to implement, I'm going to ask you to take a moment to write them down now. So yes, I'm going to share some with you in a moment, but I want you to prove to yourself that you know there are some things that you already know about rituals and routines. So I'd like you to just take a moment to put a few down on your list. Okay. While you do that, I'm just checking questions. Okay. All good. All right, so you've got some things. I know that you have. I know that you already know some things that you need to be doing or want to be doing, but aren't doing. Okay, some things you probably are already doing. So I just want you to reflect on those things that you'd like to be doing, or maybe you've been promising yourself for a while that you haven't, or you're not doing. And there could be absolute reasons why not to. Constraints now, physical constraints, all of those things taken into consideration. But maybe there's a thing, something like meditation or journaling or breathing practice or yoga on the mat at home, or just taking some quiet time or reading. There's lots of things that we can do at home, sitting out in the sun, just taking and basking in the sun, lifting our top up. I love getting the sun on my tummy, lifting our top up and just letting some sun on us, taking that space. And yes, of course, it can feel almost impossible, or if not impossible right now, with families all at home together. What a challenge that mums and dads are all facing at the moment. So if that's you, if that's your situation, then absolutely I understand and feel for you. And I would challenge you not to let that be a reason or excuse to not implement at least one routine or ritual. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so here's the thing. Now you're looking on your list. I want to sort of pose to you, why aren't we doing that? A lot of the time we say it's too hard. There's no time now. Well, there's no space now. I don't know how to. It feels daunting. I feel guilty doing it. I feel guilty standing up away from where I've been working or leaving my family for an hour while I go for a half an hour walk. There's lots of reasons and excuses that we tell ourselves as to why it's not okay. And we think that they're the truth. That's us with our blinkers on. We think that that's the truth, that it's true that I don't have space. It's true that I don't have time. It's true that it's not fair for me to do that. Now, I'm not saying those things aren't valid, but they're a truth that you've created. And a lot of the time it's because we don't want to feel what it feels like to actually have the difficult conversations or to put routines in place because of the responsibility that comes with that, or the conversations we need to have to be able to establish those practices or routines. We're not used to asking for our needs to be met. We're very used to making sure everyone else's needs are met, and this is women and men as well. But there's a nurture energy naturally in many women, and we all have it within us that we can default to giving so much to other people, but not taking care of ourselves. So as I said to you before, you already know this. You already know that you're very good at taking care of other people and not so much yourself. But I'm asking you to now look in the mirror by writing these things down and going, okay, how come I'm not doing that? Yeah. So we can tell ourselves there's no space, it's daunting, I don't know where to start, there's no time now, there's no way possibly in this 2-bedroom apartment with no outside space with 3 kids and a partner all working at home that I could ever do that. So I'm going to ask you to get resourceful. I was speaking with a leader recently who was so inspired by her. She was saying how she was realising that she was so used to getting her inspiration from external sources, from the workplace or people at work or the banter or the conversations or the meetings or just the environment. But now being stuck at home, and it can sometimes feel like that, can't it? Although some people are loving it, as we know. And staring down the lens of a Zoom call for most of our days, that can feel like our world is getting very small. Yeah. And whether we're on meetings or not, or whether it's phone calls or whether we're just at home most of the time, it can feel like our world is getting very small. But after our conversation, what she was starting to realise that she could tap into her internal resources. So rather than relying on external resources to inspire her, her creativity, her sense of freedom, her sense of self-empowerment, she realised that she could tap into her internal resources. And part of that is one of these routines around meditation. I am a non-negotiable for myself on meditation. It's taken me a long time to get to that place. And I started with just a few minutes a day, every other day. And I've been trying to put a meditation practice in place for many years. And in the last 12 months, I've been a non-negotiable for myself. And it's been a daily practice, give or take a handful of days that I've missed over the last, say, 14 months. And it's changed so much for me. And the meditation that I do is a very active, breath-inspired meditation that makes energy move through the body and back up into the brain. And I can share that with you if that's something that's interesting to you on a sidebar conversation. But any meditation practice, so write these down: Smiling Mind, Headspace and Calm are the apps. And I mentioned these: Smiling Mind, Headspace and Calm. Now, I'm pretty sure that Smiling Mind have a new part of their app which is called Thrive or Thriving. So specifically for the period, what the situation we're in at the moment. So I know that the creator, the founder of Smiling Mind was on Lady Brain's podcast recently. So check her out and check that app out, or one of those. Headspace is fantastic too because it has small, specifically tailored meditations that are guided and that can help us when we're first starting. So for the person, and that's why you're here, to understand rituals and routines, and I'll share my practice in a moment, is meditation. Now, meditation can be a big word, a loaded word, can't it? Because it's like, oh, how do I'm just imagining people in caves and sitting on the floor, and that's uncomfortable and I don't know how to do that. So sometimes I use the words quiet time. And the author, who just escapes my mind now, are 3 Simple Steps, in which I recommend that book as well, around self-empowerment and creating abundance from the inside out. 3 Simple Steps talks about quiet time as opposed to meditation. So I think that's a really accessible term as well. Can I just sit with myself and be quiet for a moment? Can I just sit with myself and put my hand on my heart and just be quiet and breathe deeply for a moment? And maybe we might like to try that now. And I know that this has been valuable in other webinars that I've run. And if you're going, oh my God, now time for me to jump off, totally get it. But just maybe if you just step in with courage just for a moment, hand on heart, taking a breath, maybe closing your eyes, and just giving yourself space. Checking in with how you're feeling. So you can be quiet, you can give to yourself. We can allow that space for ourselves. And often when we do, and what I've been finding, I've actually been doing more small meditations like that for probably 2 to 3 minutes with the leaders that I'm coaching online at the moment. And because they're in such a frenzy and taking care of themselves, trying to take care of their family, trying to take care of their team, their whole organisation, never having time, never making time for themselves to just stop, especially in the last few weeks. So I've been doing a short meditation with them. A lot of emotion has come up because they haven't given themselves to space to have that emotion be released. When that emotion is released, you know when you've had a good cry, how good that feels, how free you feel, how released you feel. So just giving ourselves space to stop and feel, letting that emotion come through. As I said, emotion needs motion. New energy, new revitalization comes through. So meditation for me is a non-negotiable. That's a routine that I would encourage you to put into place, or quiet time, or breathing practice, or connection with self, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to check in with questions. No questions at the moment, so that's good. I did ask you to save your questions, so all good. Thank you so much. Okay, so you know why we don't do it, yes? Too hard, daunting, feel guilty, all of those things. I hear you. Some people, yep, doesn't make any difference anyway. I totally get it. Sometimes we might practice meditation, for example, for 1 or 2 days and go, this isn't working, stop doing it. I've done that myself. It does take a little bit longer than that for it to start to create a benefit for you, but it is like putting money in the bank, to be honest. Meditation every day is like putting money in the bank. What I mean by that is compounding, like compounding interest. Every day we do a meditation, it's compounding the energy, the space, the opportunity of feeling connected within us. It builds on itself. Practice it for a couple of weeks. Maybe, okay, here's an action piece for you. Practice meditation if you're willing to, even just 5 minutes, maybe with one of these apps for the next 2 weeks until we meet again, see how you go. Anyway, we'll talk about actions later. All right, but the real reason we're not doing it, so we think we're not doing it because there's not enough time, but actually why we're not doing it is because we do feel guilty. But the other reason is because if I stop for a moment and face my thoughts, I'm scared of what I'm going to see and feel and hear. That's why, and I know that's why sometimes I've not done it in the past. I've not put rituals in place. I've not put things in place that I know that will help me be the person I want to be, because I'm scared to face myself. I'm scared to face what's going on in this head of mine sometimes. I don't want to stop and face the not enoughness, the fear, the uncertainty, what if I fail, all of that stuff going on in my head. I don't want to face that. And maybe that's true for you. And that's often a common reason after coaching for 20 years. Maybe I know what's going on in your mind. That's what's really going on. We feel guilty. We don't want to stop because we're scared of what we might face, what we might hear. And also the other thing when I was reflecting is we can't often count on ourselves because we haven't built the self-trust. We can't count on ourselves to keep it going. So we don't want to promise ourselves. Yeah. Because promising ourselves something and then breaking our promise is very disempowering. Our greatest sense of self-empowerment comes from self-trust. And self-trust is built step by step, making promises and keeping our promises to ourselves. We've got to start small though. We want to set ourselves up for success. Something that someone shared with me yesterday, which I'm going to share with you now, which is fabulous, and I heard it again last night from someone else. Lower the standards, lower the bar, lower our expectations. I thought this was fabulous. And it's exactly what I've been doing and what I encourage you to do. And what I mean by that now, okay, you're the leaders that are listening to me right now who are you know, highly driven, you know, running a million miles an hour, which is probably most of you, I know that lowering our standards is not usually an option, and I'm with you on that. However, in this situation that we've never dealt with before, when our stress is heightened, when our emotions are heightened, when we're dealing with situations at home and at work that we've never dealt with before, we're at our maximum capacity. And so keeping high expectations, setting ourselves up to fail every day with a morning routine and a ritual that we're just not going to keep in practice, we're setting ourselves up to feel like we have to recover the whole day into a sense of feeling successful. I want to set you up to feel like you're successful from the start of the day. So lowering our expectations just temporarily. So an example of that for me is that I love swimming in the open water. I love swimming in the salt water. I love swimming through winter. This will be, hopefully, if I still do it, if our club is closed at the moment. But if I get to do it, it means that I don't get a sauna and a shower through winter. This will be my 6th winter. There's people down at the Brighton Icebergers that have been swimming for 20 winters, and they just amaze me. So this will be my 6th, and I love it. It's ridiculous, but I love it. But I haven't been able to do it as much as I want to because I don't get the hot shower and sauna, so my body can't really stand it, and it's hard to put clothes on after you've been freezing in the water. The water is about 15 degrees at the moment, so it's okay for about 20 minutes, but it's still hard to put clothes on in the car park afterwards. So I've had to lower my standards and expectations of myself, that I might swim 2 or 3 times a week rather than 4 or 5 times a week. So that's something that I meant like an example of lowering our expectations just a little, just so that we can feel like we've got this handled and we're setting ourselves up for success. Because when we feel successful at the start of the day, we're going to have a much better day and we're going to show up in different ways. And if we feel like we're already failing, and we've got to overcompensate somehow for that, because then we're going to get triggered, then we're going to be emotional, then we're going to get grumpy with our partners and our kids much more quickly, aren't we? So there's a question. Thank you, so relevant. Confronting being present, yes. I'd love to hear an example of your routine. Absolutely, I'll be sharing that shortly. So thank you for your question. What about if you're lacking motivation rather than there being an obstacle as such? Totally get it. And so lacking motivation, I want you to think about the thoughts that you're telling yourself. So as human beings, we don't always know this, but we get to choose what we think about. It took me a long time to understand and learn this. I didn't discover this fully until I was in my 40s. And sometimes still I forget and have to remind myself that, oh yes, I get to choose. Why am I feeling like this? So consider that there's a thought and then a feeling, yeah, and then a behaviour. So if I'm not actually doing anything because I don't feel motivated, I've got to get to the thought. There's always a thought first. Now, it might not feel like that, I know, but it's always a thought first. What am I thinking such that I feel this way, such my behaviour is the way that it is, yes? So the thought is one of those things that I was sharing with you, because we've got to get under the surface. We've got to get under the surface of, we think it's lack of self-motivation. It's not that. Human beings are naturally energetic, vibrant, motivated people, species, right? It's what's underneath the surface. What are we thinking that's stopping that motivation, that natural motivation coming through? We are like the cork that wants to float to the surface of the water. We're holding ourselves down through the thoughts that we think and the belief patterns that we have. That's what we have to be really start. And so remember I said about leading self? Leading self is all about this. It's all about this. And it's daily practice to know what's going on in our mind. But our feelings are really important. When we don't feel self-motivated, we're feeling lethargic or upset or disappointed, or we're feeling, let's say we're feeling sad or alone, might be the driver of the lack of motivation. It's a thought that we're thinking. Now, I'm not saying let's pretend everything's fine, but if you can get to the source of what you're feeling through understanding your thoughts, you can change your thoughts and match your thoughts to who you want to be and how you want to feel. I didn't say it was easy. It's not easy, but that's what's really going on. So it's not about, I just need to motivate myself, which is why these are not motivating sessions. I don't do self-motivation. I do self-inspiration. Inspiration from the inside out by understanding what's going on here. Okay, cool. All right, so I want you to reflect on what it is that you think is going on for you, about why you don't implement so far what you know about rituals and routines. It's why this hour isn't about a whole bunch of routines. I'm going to give those to you in a moment. But it's more than that. It takes more than that to be consistent and sustain a routine and a ritual. because it comes from who we're being. If we don't feel we're worthy, or we feel guilty, or we are not willing to ask for our needs to be met, for example, darling, I want to go for a walk for this next half hour. I know that you haven't had a walk yet. Would it work? Can we set a routine or a structure so that I can have my needs met too, or the kids can have their needs met, you have your needs met? We don't usually have those kind of conversations. We're just surviving, especially in this situation. So those are things that are holding us back from setting in place these rituals and routines. It's not self-motivation. So what is it for you? What's holding you back? You know this. You know what's holding you back. It's within you, and that's why we do the breathing practice, because our body has lots of wisdom and our heart has lots of wisdom and can tell us these answers. So it's something like, I feel guilty. I don't want to have the kind of conversation it's going to take. You might think it's because I can't even see a way to do that. Yeah, I get that. But underneath that, there'll be something else. Okay? So just take a moment to write down what it is for you that's getting in the way. Is it worthiness? I don't feel deserving. Maybe it's I'm confused. I don't know where to start. Go underneath that. What's holding you back? Okay. Yeah, do that for a moment. Thank you. Light bulb. Yes, excellent. Thank you. Yep. Fear of failing. Fear of failing. Fantastic. Well done. That's a great one. Fear of failing. I'm not going to start it, because what if I'm like this with yoga. I have a start-stop relationship with yoga, right? So we're all human. And so I always have this thing about, I have high expectations of myself of yoga. Well, that's gone out the window, because I don't meet those high expectations ever, but I love yoga. So that's one of my constant challenges, is to bring a yoga practice at home. So I've lowered the expectations on myself at the moment, and I don't do that. I do other things, but I don't do that. What else? Fear of failing. What about if you're like, yep, got that. Amazing. Thank you. All right. So you should have something down about what's in the way. For me, about yoga is about, I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared I'm going to get it wrong. I'm scared that I'm just not going to be able to stand my own inability when I get on the mat. Inability here as well as inability in here. Yes. So it's something that we don't always want to admit to ourselves. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know if this is helpful. Pop your comments in the chat box and just let me know if this is helpful for you so far. Yes, I feel selfish because I should be looking after my family first. Absolutely. Guilty goes along with that. So guilt and feeling selfish. And that's a way back when. That's something that we've learned from our mother or our father or our environment. That's a pattern that we have to unravel to rebuild. Yes? So if we're feeling selfish, that we're putting ourselves, we think, first, I bet if a friend rang you and said, this is how I'm feeling, I'm not doing what I need to do for myself, you would say to her or him, it's not selfish. You need to take care of yourself first so you can be there for others. I told you, you already know this information. It's about why we're not doing it. Yeah. And so the selfishness is the first step, but potentially it's a conversation you're not having that you know that you need to have. And we need to be able to, one of the things about self-leadership is being able to ask for our needs to be met in a way that we're not attached. So it's like an invitation that someone can say yes or no to. And that's unraveling codependency in our relationships. Because if I expect you to understand what I need and give me permission, then that's codependency. If I'm not willing to ask for my needs to be met and okay, if whatever conversation we have, that's a self-leadership perspective. So those conversations we usually don't know how to do or how to have. It's because we haven't learnt them in our past, and we've got all this guilt coming from us because that's what we've learnt from our upbringing. Now, it's nobody's fault because our parents have learnt that themselves from their upbringing. Right? It's part of the human condition, which is why the coaching helps us, or transformational coaching helps us unravel those things. All right, so we're good. All right, I want to put next thing on the board. If you've got any questions, let me know, because I can judgment of others. Amazing. Yes. I feel selfish because I should be able. Yep. Learn that from my mother. I know. Look, we love our mothers and our fathers, and your kids are learning things from you, as you know, all day, every day. And everyone's doing their best, but we have learned things along the way that we repeat. And one of those things is guilt, fear of being selfish, and usually putting ourselves last. And that's something we have to reckon with if we want to be the leader and person and wife and partner and mum dad that we want to be. And if we want to feel the way we want to feel in life, even in this situation. I was having a conversation with a leader yesterday, and he was sharing how he was feeling, constraint because of this situation, just wants to run and run, is used to running fast, running far and taking his team with him and achieving a lot of things really quickly, which he's amazing at, and is feeling constrained. And my question to him was, is it possible to feel free even though we're in this situation? And those are the questions I've been asking myself, because freedom can feel like it needs to be an external thing, as I said before, around external resources. But we can shift our internal state by understanding our thoughts and our feelings so that we can be free and feel free even though we feel constrained physically. Yeah. Can you elaborate on this concept of codependencies? Were you referring to asking for permission for a walk as an example? Yes. So when we're codependency is a big topic in relationships, and most relationships have some level of codependency. It's not wrong, and it can kind of feel like a loaded word, can't it? But what I mean by that is that if silent expectations is the point I go back to, we, as human beings, we already have rewired expectations of ourselves and each other in our mind. So, and especially in our relationships, our intimate relationships, maybe with our children and even with our teams as well, is that we have expectations of each other, but we don't often speak our expectations. We assume that they know what our expectations are, or we think that we've agreed expectations, but really we've just fired off a lot of instructions. And people, because we have different understanding, communication and behavioural profiles, we all see the world in different ways. We don't see the world the way, no one sees the world the way I see it, no one sees the world the way you see it. So when I say what my expectations are, someone's going to hear it in a different way. So we assume that people know what our expectations are, and then when they don't meet them, we get angry or upset or frustrated, or we make it mean they don't love us, or we make it mean that they're not engaged, or we make it mean that they're not doing as productive as they could be. So as human beings, we're meaning-making machines. You might have heard me say that before, and it's very true. Something happens, we make it mean something. Brené Brown, as you might, I've said her name 3 times today, so I'm a big fan. She calls it The Story I'm Telling Myself, and her Netflix special, The Call to Courage, talks about this, which is a great story about the story I'm telling myself about her and her husband at the end of that Netflix special. So codependency comes when we aren't willing to express our expectations or ask for our needs to be met, or we do, but we've got an expectation that someone else will fulfill them. It's not like they're free to fulfill them or not. Yes? So asking for our needs to be met. So knowing what our needs are first, and then asking for them to be met. I hope that's helpful. I want to get on to the rituals and routines, but let me know if that's been helpful. All right, okay, so everyone good? Let's take a pause moment here. Now there's something I want to give you a pause moment. Okay. Yes, perfect, thanks, excellent. All right, so any other questions, please pop them in the chat box. We've got 13 minutes remaining, so I'm going to give you this thing about this diagram now about routines, rituals, and now that we've talked about self-responsibility. Okay, get your pins ready or your iPad ready. Okay, so I said on the event description, self-responsibility and routines and rituals. Yes, so the key where we start, and which I've spent time on today, is self-responsibility. So we've talked about that. It's the core. It's the core of the routine and ritual part of our life that will help us embed them such that they become something that we want to do and we're drawn to do and we want to get out of bed at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. to do, yes? So it's almost like it becomes then something that draws us and pulls us there because it's the future that we're living into that's drawing us there, yeah? So self-responsibility is the foundation of making our rituals and routines stick, okay? So putting self-responsibility, there's 4 things here. The first one around self-responsibility, I'm just going to summarise this, is permission to feel. So I've talked a little about our emotions, giving space to our emotions and our feelings. Mark Brackett, I mentioned to you earlier, who's the director of the Centre of Emotional Intelligence, his book is called Permission to Feel. So we need to understand what our feelings and our emotions are, and what we can do through that, how we can do that is just by sitting quietly and taking some of that breathing space and just letting all of the emotions and feelings come through, whether that's excitement or feeling hopeful or sad or alone or isolated, yeah? All of that is really important. Because, why is that important? Because when we can give space to our emotions and feelings, we're much more powerful because we let that move through, new ideas come through, we can be very influential and be in our self-empowerment when we have a clear mind. Yeah. And the next point is clarity. And I'm just looking through here because I've got it written on the board to remind me on that side. So clarity is, who do I want to be? So clarity. So the first step is permission to feel. Once we do that, clarity comes through. Who do I want to be? And how do I want to feel? Right? Who do I want to be and how do I want to feel? So this is part of routine and ritual. This is the first piece. Self-responsibility. Permission to feel and clarity about who I want to be and how I want to feel. So what is it? What's the creation? Who are you creating yourself to be? Are you just repeating yesterday? Easy to do that in the state of survival that we're in at the moment. But I'm challenging you to elevate yourself out of that space of survival. Can you see this? Out of surviving into creating, yeah, and then into thriving. So at the moment, I know this is where I went down deep into survival in the first couple of weeks. I felt, talking about feelings, giving myself permission to feel, I really struggled with that for the first week especially. This situation hit us and it feels so sudden. And I went straight into my head and I was feeling confused and deeply sad and upset. As the time went on, I was feeling sad and starting to grieve what was happening in the world. And also I was feeling really alone and worried. And so I went into survival. And my body suffered. My practices went all over the place. And till I kind of calibrated back myself, went, hang on, I need to find out what's going on inside myself. So it's natural to be in surviving. I'm asking you to start now elevating your thinking into creating. We don't have to go to thriving yet, or you could be in thriving. You might want to go to thriving. That's okay. But just consider getting out of survival and into a space of creation. So the creation is, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? Do I want to feel inspired even though the situation is challenging? Do I want to feel free even though I don't feel free physically? Do I want to feel creative? Do I want to feel hopeful? Do I want to feel like a leader for my family and my business? So who do you want to be, right? And you can do more of this work over the weekend in your own reflection. The third thing is, once I've given myself permission to feel and new space is coming through and I'm getting clear on who I want to be and how I actually do want to feel, so I don't want to feel alone, I want to feel connected, right? That was for me how I wanted to feel. The third one is, what needs to shift in my behaviour? What needs to shift in my behaviour for me to fulfill on this? Now, as you know, I go thought, feeling, behaviour, but I'm specifically saying here because we can access a behaviour much more easily than we can access what's going on in our thoughts. So what would need to shift in my behaviour to feel this way? What would need to shift in my behaviour to feel how I want to feel? Connected, yeah, inspired. Okay, and then the fourth thing, I'm going to come back to that. You with me? And then the fourth thing is, what do I need to believe? What would I need to believe to be someone who could feel like this? What would I need to believe to feel free even though I'm physically constrained? You with me so far? Let me know if you've got questions, if this is making sense or if you need more clarification. So the 4 steps are permission to feel first, giving myself permission to feel, letting emotions empty, then getting real clear on who do I want to be as a creation, what's the future I'm living into and want to live into. Yes. What would need to shift in my behaviour to do that? Does that make sense? Let me know if this is making sense for you. And then what would I need to believe to do that? What would I need to believe? What are the things I would need to believe to do that? I would need to believe it's possible to feel free even though I can't go to my favourite gym. Or I would need to know that I would need to believe that I feel that it's possible to feel connected and as part of a community or part of my family group or swimming group. I'd need to be able to believe that that's possible to feel that way even though I can't do it physically. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that you would have believed before, but I need to believe that. I need to know that it's possible, or I need to know in my head that it's possible. Remember, this is a creation. It's not a default thinking, so we're creating it from nothing, okay? So I'm just going to give you a moment. So it makes perfect sense. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Liquid gold. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm grateful to be with you as well. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm going to give you a moment to write this down and make sure that you've got a couple of notes for yourself. Now, I want to give you an example for me, as I said. So my permission to feel is to feel alone, feel disconnected, feel sad, feel heavy. I felt really heavy and I was carrying it in my body. Yeah. And then how do I want to feel? I want to feel inspired. I want to feel like I can thrive in this situation. I want to feel connected. I want to feel open. I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel refreshed. Yes. And then what would need to shift in my behavior? What would need to shift in my behavior? I found that I was emotionally eating. I would need to shift my behavior around my food. That emotional eating went on for a couple of weeks for me. And okay, hang on a minute. I need to shift this behavior. I kind of woke up to myself. I need to shift this behavior. I need to reset what I love about how I eat healthy. And yeah, so as you can see, I went straight into survival. So I needed to shift some behavior around my own daily routines again and come back to what I knew was really felt comfortable and felt healthy and strong for me. And I need to believe that it's possible to feel connected even though I can't go and hug the people that I want to hug. I'd have to be able to believe that. Yes, that I need to do that work to be able to go into rituals and routines. Okay, cool, got that? So the next one is rituals. So the next one is rituals. So I want you to put in 1 to 3 rituals that feel aligned to the person you want to be. Feel aligned to the person you want to be. So the rituals for me, as I said, non-negotiable meditation. I get up somewhere between 4:30 now, 4:30 and 5:30, and I do an hour to an hour and a half meditation. But I doubled down on my meditation and I do it in the evening now as well. I needed to recalibrate. I needed to reset my body. So now I'm doing it morning and evening. Yes, I'm eating a little bit less than I was the first 2 weeks. So the emotional eating, the somehow survival eating, right? No, I didn't panic buy, but there was different kinds of foods going in my body than usual. So I needed to, the ritual was back to healthy eating, back to clean eating, back to feeling really good about nourishing my body. Yes, making sure that lowering my expectations, as I said before, around my ability to swim. So 2 to 3 times a week rather than 4 or 5 times a week. So the rituals that you put in place, journaling and gratitude journals. So gratitude journals, so some rituals I'm giving you now, a meditation or quiet time. And you choose when you want to do that. Mine is morning and night. I would encourage you at least one of those times, morning or night, or both, as I gave you those apps before. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's someone that people, if you know me, is someone of a great mentor of mine. I highly encourage you to try out his books and his meditations. They are challenging, but transformative. Dr. Joe Dispenza. All right, meditation, journaling, and gratitude. So, nature, breathing, you can do it instead of meditation. Yeah. So I used to wake up failing. I used to wake up already a failure in my own mind, remembering how not enough I was, how I was not going to be enough that day, how I was already behind my own expectations. That was a long time ago. Sometimes it still creeps up on me. But when we wake up, we've got to live into the future. Part of a ritual is to live into the future that we want to live into. And that's this piece here, being really clear on the future you want to live into. So what's the future you want to live into? You've got to create the future. A ritual that I love is creating my ideal day. So what's my ideal day? Writing my ideal day down over and over and over again. So that's a ritual I'd encourage. And then routine. I know I've only got a couple of minutes, like 90 seconds. Routine. Routine is easy. Routine is easy when you've done this work and you've done this work. Yep. When you've said, who do I want to be? You can't get to that until you've done this and this. Then you go, okay, what are the rituals that match that person, match the person I want to be, the wife, the mum, the leader, the dad, the friend. Who do I want to be? Create the rituals that fill into that, and then your routine becomes easy. but lower the bar. Lower the bar. Make it a daily practice or a weekly practice. Yes? So give me your questions. I feel guilty because I was thriving in isolation. Yes. Others in team and connection suffering. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Questions. I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer. I know those, I said 8:30. And if you want to jump off, obviously you are free to jump off. However, I'm happy to stay and answer your questions. So routines and rituals. Start with self-responsibility. Okay. Start with self-responsibility. Then once you've done, that's 80% or if not 90% of the work. You don't hear that in the memes and the information, but it's important because you know to implement something and sustain it, there's something got to shift within you. It's not about self-motivation. You've got to feel worthy. You've got to let go of the feelings of selfishness and guilt. You've got to do the work to find that space within yourself, letting your emotions go, right? Then the rituals marry the person that you want to be, and then the routine becomes easy. The routine is just kind of like the icing on the cake because you've transformed within you. You've committed to a ritual that matches the person you want to be, and you wake up to that person every day, and then the routine is easy. Usually we do it the other way around. We think we've got to work hard to get the routine in. No. Transformational work, remember opening up our blind spots into what we don't know that we don't know, is about starting at the other end, starting from the inside out. All right. Questions? Anything else that you'd like to ask? Perfect timing. Thank you. All right. Any questions, please post them. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. It's been great to spend the hour with you. I'd love to hear the topics. We're going to be sending out a form with the recording. We'll send it to all of you so you can watch later and reflect again. And I'd love to know if there's a problem that you would really like me to talk about or to help you with or to coach you on through this time. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and I'll also be providing something really special in the next few sessions. I'll be asking people to join me to offer their advice and coaching around relationships. So relationship experts that is one of my mentors, as well as business experts, people that can provide as much value, even more value for you. So I hope this has been helpful and you've enjoyed it. Please let me know what you've thought. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, amazing, perfect timing. Thank you so much. Have an amazing, wonderful day. And looks like I've got questions in the Q&A box. Thank you. Routines and rituals in the morning to alert your day. What about the end of the day to wind down? Thank you. Yes, so if those people are still staying on, if you want to wind down at the end of the day, it's a great way to do your meditation. That's what I do now. I do an hour-and-a-half meditation in the evening. You could do 5-10 minutes. I would recommend a 10-minute meditation or 15-minute meditation at the end of the day. And then after that, a journaling practice and a gratitude practice, putting on some beautiful music and then going to sleep. That's what I would recommend for an evening practice with a beautiful warm chamomile tea or something like that. So bring our energy down, but you can do that even through the day. Encourage you to do that through the day so that your breath practice is helping you, supporting you to calibrate and recalibrate your nervous system back into your deeper breath, your deeper resonance. So I would encourage that throughout the day as well as at the end of the day. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Let me see if there's anything else that you'd like to ask. Yes. Okay, hopefully you got your answer to that. Thank you so much. Okay. We've had people that have said, sorry, that it's dropped out. So, and kids got in the way. We love our kids. And yes, sometimes they get in the way of the thing that we think we want to do. But that's why it's great to have a webinar so that you can dial in. And if the kids interrupt, that's okay too. There'll be a recording. We'll send out the recording to everyone who is on the session today so you can reflect on that as well. So wonderful to spend time with you. I'm just checking to see if there's any last questions. Great focus. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you all for being here. I love spending the morning with you. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.